If you are hearing these words today, it is not by accident. Out of the millions of videos that exist on this platform, your finger stopped here, on this exact message, at this exact moment of your life. And I want you to understand something before we even begin. Someone has been knocking on your door for a long time, and this message has come to remind you of that. So before we go any further, take 2 seconds, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, share it with someone who just came to mind right now without even knowing why, and if while listening to these words you feel something stir inside you, write "Thank God" in the comments. Not for me. For you. To mark today, the exact moment you finally heard that quiet knock you have been ignoring for far too long. Because what I am about to tell you now, most people never take the time to listen to, but you, if you are still here, if something kept you from scrolling to the next video, it is because that door I'm about to talk about, you already know it deep down. Listen closely. There is a simple yet powerful image that runs through all of Scripture. Jesus standing before a closed door, knocking. Not a wooden door, not a metal door. The door of your heart. It is written, and I am not inventing this, that he stands at the door and knocks, and if anyone hears his voice and opens the door, he will come in. Understand this deeply. Jesus never forces a door open. He never breaks down an entrance. He stands there patiently, and he waits. That image should shake something inside you, because it reveals a truth most people completely ignore. The one who created the entire universe, the one who holds all power and all authority, chooses to remain standing at your door, never breaking it down, simply waiting for you to turn a handle. It is not a coincidence that you have been feeling lately a strange sensation, like a low, steady sound deep inside you, when you keep trying to ignore by turning up the volume of your life. It is not a coincidence that some nights in the silence, when all the outside noise finally fades, you hear something you can't quite name. Understand this, that sound, that sensation, is not anxiety without a cause. It is a knock at the door. A patient knock, repeated, never violent, never forced, but so constant that it always ends up being heard, sooner or later, in the life of every human being. Most people never understand this truth. This word Jesus spoke about the door was not addressed to people far from him, to strangers, to those who had never heard of God. This word was spoken to a church, to believers, to people who already thought they were close to him. Look closely at the context. Jesus describes a community that believes itself to be rich, satisfied, in need of nothing, while in reality, spiritually, it is poor, blind, and naked without even knowing it. Understand this deeply. You can attend the places closest to God, know all the right words, have grown up in the faith, and yet have closed, without even realizing it, the most intimate door of your heart. It isn't always the unbeliever who ignores Jesus knocking. Sometimes it's the one who believes he already knows everything about him. If this resonates with you, listen closely to what comes next. Look at how Jesus, at that exact moment, does not condemn this community with violence. He does not knock the door down. He does not walk away in disgust, giving up for good. He stays there, standing, and he knocks again. Understand this. Jesus' patience in the face of a closed door is one of the greatest proofs of his love. A man who doesn't love walks away at the first refusal. A man who truly loves stays, keeps gently insisting, comes back again and again, never forcing his way in, because true love always respects the freedom of the one it loves. That is exactly what Jesus has been doing with you for years, maybe your whole life. Now look at the story of Zacchaeus, that short man, despised by everyone, a tax collector hated by his own people, who climbed a tree just to catch a glimpse of Jesus passing through his town. Zacchaeus probably expected nothing more than a fleeting glance, a simple curiosity satisfied from up in the branches. And yet Jesus stops right under that tree, looks up, and speaks these words that turned this man's whole life upside down. Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for I must stay at your house today. Understand this deeply. Jesus did not wait for Zacchaeus to knock on his door. He was the one who took the initiative to knock on the door of Zacchaeus' house, literally inviting himself in. It is not a coincidence that today, you too find yourself facing this message, as if someone had stopped right under the tree where you are hiding. And look at what happened once Zacchaeus finally opened his door, both literally and symbolically. He did not simply receive a passing guest. His entire life changed in a single evening. He promised to repay fourfold everyone he had cheated, to give half of his possessions to the poor. A man known for his greed, transformed in a single encounter, simply because he agreed to open his door to the one who had stopped right in front of his house. Understand this. Opening the door to Jesus never simply means adding one more religious practice to your life. It means letting him completely rearrange the inside of your inner house, your priorities, your attachments, the way you see others and yourself. Listen closely, because here is an even deeper truth that most people completely ignore. Sometimes it isn't the door to your entire life that Jesus wants to open first, but one specific room you have kept locked for a very long time, a room you avoid even looking at yourself. Look at the story of the woman caught in the act of adultery, dragged before Jesus by a crowd ready to stone her according to the law. This woman probably had no hope left of being approached without judgment, without condemnation, without a look of contempt. Every door to her dignity seemed shut forever, locked by shame, by the eyes of others, by her own guilt. And yet Jesus, instead of judging her, bends down and writes on the ground. Then he looks up and speaks these words that have echoed through the centuries. Let whoever among you is without sin be the first to throw a stone. One by one, her accusers walk away, starting with the oldest. And Jesus, alone with this woman, does not tell her what she expected, another condemnation, another judgment. He simply tells her, "Neither do I condemn you, go, and sin no more." Understand this deeply. Jesus never knocks at the door of your shame to accuse you further. He knocks to set you free from it. If you have locked an entire room of your heart because of a shame you have carried for years, know that it is not another stone Jesus is holding in front of that door. It is an outstretched hand. Understand this now, because we are touching on something very few people dare to face. There are doors we close not out of shame, but out of fear of being disappointed once again. Look at the story of the two disciples on the road to Emmaus, on the very day of the resurrection. They walk, downcast, hopeless, discussing everything that had happened, convinced that the one they had placed their hope in was definitively dead. A stranger joins them on the road, walks with them for hours, explains the scriptures with a clarity that sets their hearts on fire, without them recognizing who he truly is. Understand this. Sometimes Jesus has been walking beside you for a long time without you recognizing him, precisely because your disappointment has made you unable to see his presence, even when it's right next to you. And look at that beautiful moment when everything shifts. Once they arrive at their home, the two disciples insist that this stranger stay with them, since the day is already ending. He goes in, sits at the table, takes the bread, blesses it, breaks it, and gives it to them. And it is at that exact moment, that moment of intimate sharing, that their eyes are finally opened, and they recognize him. Understand this deeply. Sometimes the door that needs to open isn't an outer door, but the door of your perception, the one that keeps you from recognizing that Jesus is already there, at your table, walking beside you since the very beginning of your sorrow, simply waiting for you to truly invite him to sit down. If this resonates with you, listen closely to what comes next, because here is a truth that could change how you understand this entire message. Look at the story of the prodigal son, that young man who demands his share of the inheritance, goes off to a distant country, squanders everything in reckless living, and ends up alone, starving, feeding pigs, so desperate he is ready to eat their food. Understand this. This man had himself closed every door behind him when he left his father's house. Humanly speaking, there was no reason for his father to keep waiting for him, no reason for the door of that house to remain open to his return, after so much humiliation, so much waste, so much betrayal. And yet Scripture says the father saw him from far off, while he was still a long way away. Understand what that means. This father was watching the horizon every single day, hoping to catch a glimpse of his son's silhouette coming back. He wasn't passively waiting behind a closed door. He was scanning the road, day after day, refusing to give up hope. And when he finally saw his son in the distance, he didn't wait for him to humbly reach the door and ask for forgiveness. He ran to him, embraced him, dressed him in the finest robe, put a ring on his finger, and threw a huge celebration to mark his return. Understand this deeply. If you have closed every door behind you yourself, because of choices you regret, paths you should never have taken, know that the door of the Father's house has never been locked from his side. It was you who, in walking away, believed that it was. Listen closely now, because here is the most intense truth in this entire message. Look at what happened on the very evening of the resurrection, when the disciples, terrified, were locked in a room, the doors bolted out of fear of the religious authorities. They weren't expecting anyone. They had barricaded themselves, convinced the danger was coming from outside, still unable to understand that the one they were mourning was alive. And Scripture says Jesus came, stood among them, even though the doors were locked, and said to them, "Peace be with you." Understand this deeply. There are doors so locked, so barricaded by fear, that even you no longer believe they could ever open again. And yet Jesus doesn't need you to open that door in order to reach you. He can pass through what you believed was impossible to cross, and suddenly stand in the middle of your fear with a single word, "Peace be with you." Understand this now, because we are reaching the heart of what this message wants to give you. You may be carrying, for years now, several closed doors at once. A door closed by shame, like the woman accused of adultery. A door closed by disappointment, like the disciples on the road to Emmaus. A door closed by guilt and distance, like the prodigal son in that far-off country. A door closed by fear, like the disciples barricaded in that room. And maybe even a door closed by an excess of religious confidence, like that church that believed itself rich when it was actually poor without knowing it. Understand this: whatever kind of door you have closed, whatever the reason behind it, this message has come to remind you of one essential truth. Jesus is always standing there, and he is always knocking with the same patience, the same love, never forcing his way in, never giving up. Now that we have walked together through these stories, the door of the sleeping church, the house of Zacchaeus, the shame of the accused woman, the road to Emmaus, the Father's house and his prodigal son, and the barricaded room of the disciples on the evening of the resurrection, I want to speak to you concretely, because a revelation that doesn't turn into action stays sterile. The first thing I ask of you is to stop drowning out the world around you so you no longer have to hear that quiet knock at your door. Like that church that believed itself fulfilled, take a moment today to truly stop and listen to what you have been trying to ignore for far too long. The second thing I ask of you is to come down from your tree, like Zacchaeus, if you have spent a long time simply watching Jesus from a distance without ever daring to truly invite him into your everyday life. He isn't asking for perfect commitment. He's simply asking you to come down and open your door. The third thing I ask of you is to stop believing that your shame disqualifies you from opening yourself to him. Like the woman accused of adultery, whatever you have carried in secret for years does not drive Jesus away from your door. It only makes his outstretched hand even more necessary. The fourth thing I ask of you is to set your disappointment aside long enough to recognize that he may already be walking beside you. Like the disciples on the road to Emmaus, open your eyes to that presence your sadness has kept you from seeing until now. The fifth thing I ask of you is to believe that the road back, however long and humiliating it feels, always leads to a Father who is already watching the horizon. Like the prodigal son, stop believing the door is locked simply because you were the one who walked away. The sixth thing I ask of you is to stop barricading yourself in fear, thinking the danger only comes from outside. Like the locked-in disciples, understand that Jesus can pass straight into the most bolted room of your heart, without you ever having had to turn the key. The seventh thing I ask of you is simply to open. Not to fully understand. Not to be 100% ready. Not to have every answer before acting. Just to open today, the door he has been patiently standing in front of for so long. Understand this now, because we are approaching the conclusion of this message, and I want every word to sink deep into you. That knock you have been feeling lately, that strange sensation deep inside you that you can't quite name, that restlessness at night, that emptiness nothing seems to fill, is not by accident. It is him. He has never stopped standing at your door, even during the years you never even thought about him. He never forced that door, even though he could have, with all his power, opened it in a single instant. He chose to remain standing patiently, respecting your freedom, simply waiting for you to turn the handle from your side. You did not arrive here by accident. This word did not come into your life by chance. If you have made it this far in this message, it is because something in you has heard, perhaps for the first time with such clarity, that quiet knock you have been pushing away for far too long. He has not forgotten the door of your sleeping heart, just as he did not forget the church that believed itself fulfilled. He has not forgotten your tree, the place you hide, just as he did not forget Zacchaeus. He has not forgotten your buried shame, just as he did not forget the accused woman. He has not forgotten your blinding sadness, just as he did not forget the disciples on the road to Emmaus. He has not forgotten your road back home, just as he did not forget the prodigal son. And he has certainly not forgotten your room barricaded by fear, just as he did not forget the disciples that evening, when he simply stood in the middle of them and said, "Peace be with you." This message is the knock you are hearing today. Perhaps the clearest one you have ever heard. And the only question that truly matters now is this: are you going to keep acting as if you heard nothing, or are you finally going to rise today and open that door? It isn't complicated. It isn't some long formula, or an elaborate ritual. It is simply a heart saying yes, to the one who has been waiting for so long, with so much patience, so much love, never once growing tired of you. If this message has resonated with you, if you feel these words were truly meant for you, then before you close this video, take a moment. Like it, so that other people exactly like you today might come across this message at the exact moment they need to hear that knock at their door. Subscribe if you haven't already, to keep receiving words that awaken what has been sleeping inside you for far too long. Share this video with someone who just came to mind right now, without even knowing why that name popped into your head, because maybe that person also has a door they no longer dare to look at. And above all, if you are receiving this message with faith, if something inside you has just opened, even slightly, even hesitantly, write "Thank God" in the comments. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to mark before yourself and before heaven, the exact moment you finally turned the handle. He has been standing there, always, patient, loving, never tired of knocking. And today, that door can finally open.